Hi everyone, my name is Peter and thanks for joining me at Our Worship Sound. Alright, in our last video we talked about how to take something that works in another song and something that you like, figuring out why it sounds good, and how to transfer that to a different song. And we talked about how kind of the basis and the key for this is to understand what's going on according to different notes in the scale. So with that, there's some steps we need to take to understand how scales come together. And this video is a really important step. I think it's often overlooked, but this is a step that we have to understand if we're going to understand how to properly put together scales for different keys. So here's the quick overview. Let's say that you figure out what note in your song is kind of the home note, it's the home key, if you will. We need to figure out if that scale is going to have sharps or it's going to have flats, because we need to use different rules for each one. So figuring out whether we're going to use the rules for sharps or the rules for flats. Here's how we're going to do it. So the quick overview is this. If the home note is one of these flats, obviously we're going to use the rules for flat. So if the scale starts on a flat, or the home note of the key is a flat, we're going to use flats. If the home note is a sharp, like F sharp, we're going to use the rules for sharps. Okay, simple enough so far. Now here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. If it starts on C, we're going to use all naturals, all the white keys on the piano, if you will. And then if it starts on F, we're going to use just B flat, just one flat in the F scale. Okay, so these two we have to have memorized. That leaves us with D, E, G, A, and B. Okay, the scales that start on these notes are all going to use the rules for sharps. Okay, so these notes are all naturals. They're not all of the naturals because we have C and F up here, but if it's a natural that's not C or F, we're going to use the rules for sharps. Okay, like I said, there are different rules for each one, but this is how we know which set of rules to use. So again, if it starts on a flat, we're going to use the rules for flats. If it starts on a sharp, the scale is going to have sharps in it. If it starts on C, it's all naturals. If it's F, it's one flat. Those two we have memorized. If it starts on a natural other than C or F, it's going to use sharps. Okay, now there's one more thing I want to point out about this. And let's say you're playing a song and you're on piano and you determine that a black key is the home note. It's the first note of the scale. It sounds like home, okay? So we're going to base it off that black key. Now we could say that, for example, let's take this C sharp. Let's say C sharp is the home note of this scale. Let's base our scale off C sharp. So if it starts on a sharp, we're going to use sharps, right? Well, there's only one scale that really starts on a sharp, and that's F sharp, okay? The reason is if you try to start a scale on C sharp, you're going to end up with every note in the scale as a sharp. You're going to have 7 sharps. It's easier to understand this scale in terms of flats, like D flat, starting on D flat, because that way you only have 5 flats instead of 7 sharps, okay? So to properly understand scales starting on black keys, they're always going to be flats with that one exception for F sharp. And actually with this one, it doesn't matter if you think of it as F sharp or G flat. Okay, it'd be 6 flats or 6 sharps. It's according to your preference. You can understand it either way. Okay, but again, if it starts on a black key, it's gonna be a flat unless you prefer to think of this one as F sharp. Okay, so one more time, if it starts on a black key, it's gonna be a flat, and we're gonna use the rules for flats. Or if it starts on F sharp, it's gonna use the rules for sharps. For C and F, we have those memorized. If it starts on a natural other than C or F, it's going to use the rules for sharps. Okay, in the next 2 videos, we're going to talk about what those rules are, but this is kind of a first necessary step. So stay tuned for that. There's some really basic things about how scales come together. If we understand it the right way, it's going to make sense and it's going to be easy to understand. So stay tuned for those videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.